We are recording this press conference. Mayor Woodards, the microphone is yours.
Good morning, and thank you very much for that opening this morning. I am delighted to be here with all of you and some of our great partners in doing this work. Last summer, I received a phone call from then Mayor Michael Tubbs of Stockton, California, asking me if Tacoma would be interested in being a part of a national movement called Mayors for a Guaranteed Income, based on the Stockton pilot that Mayor Tubbs had been responsible for. While we hadn't been talking about guaranteed income directly, it was certainly something that we were already learning was an issue in our city and was something that needed to be addressed. However, in the face of COVID, it exacerbated what we already knew. So I immediately said, yes, I would love to learn more and figure out how we can bring that kind of program to support the residents here in Tacoma. We signed up and it has been a whirlwind ever since, and I'm so delighted that we did. Immediately, I thought about who would be the best partners to work with us on this. And I immediately thought about United Way because of the work that they're doing around ALICE and eradicating poverty in our community. I won't talk a lot about ALICE this morning, as Donna Ponapento, the president and CEO of United Way, will get into those details in her remarks. But I just wanted, you'll hear it a number of times, we've talked a lot about ALICE over the years, and that is someone who is asset limited, income constraint, but employed. And it's someone who wakes up every single day and tries to do the right thing, but doesn't still have enough to take care of their basic needs. And so talked to United Way and then reached out to the Greater Tacoma Community Foundation, the Tacoma Urban League, Tacoma Housing Authority, and decided, and Sound Outreach, and talked with all of them and pulled a group together. And we began to talk about what this could look like in Tacoma and how we might bring a program like this and make it successful. We spent several months working on what our plan would look like. And then in late fall, we were notified of the grant that was given to us by Jack Dorsey from Twitter. And we talked about that in several press conferences, but a grant that would go to all of the founding cities of Mayors for a Guaranteed Income of $500,000. And that was in addition to the $100,000 that had already been given to the city of Tacoma for planning efforts. That jump started a process that we thought was going to take us a little bit longer to actually stand up a demonstration and raise the money, but that helped us get to the point where we are today. And that is actually having a soft kickoff for the Mayor's Guaranteed Income Project in Tacoma. I am delighted that we were able to receive this gift. I am grateful to Mayors for a Guaranteed Income and Mayor Michael Tubbs, who will be joining us later, and I will share more information about him then, but grateful that Tacoma is going to have this opportunity. Why Tacoma? Why now? Why is it important to support our local families? Well, pre-pandemic, we know that 40% of Tacoma households struggle to make ends meet. The cost of healthcare, utilities, transportation, and other essential living expenses is over $72,000 in Tacoma and Pierce County. Yet half, 50% of our residents don't earn that amount. National statistics tell us that most families don't have the ability to even afford a $400 emergency, whether that's a flat tire or something that breaks in a house, or the ability for children to participate in certain activities, that money does not exist for most families. And I believe as a city, as we call ourselves a compassionate city and the city of destiny, it is our responsibility to make sure that everyone who lives in our community has what they need to be successful. We talk a lot about equity and the importance of supporting those who need it the most. And in my opinion, this is one way to not just talk the talk, but walk the walk. In December, The City Council passed a resolution, and my partner in this work, whom I'm incredibly grateful for, and the council member Christina Walker, helped lead the charge to get a resolution passed by the City Council in early December to accept this MGI funding. We worked with United Way, who will be the administrator of this project. And as I said, we've put together our steering committee that has been working closely on this issue. And now we are working on our MGI launch and plan. And again, Donna will go into more detail. I think there is no more time that this project is absolutely needed as we struggle with COVID and coming out of COVID. As we watch communities continue to suffer, as we watch the economic climate continue to change, there is no better time than now to launch this demonstration project and to show what this, and to show not just local, but local, state, and federal partners what a difference this can make in the lives of our community. So I keep calling it this project. And I keep saying Mayors for a Guaranteed Income. Well, I am also delighted to announce the formal name of our Guaranteed Income project, which to me really speaks to who Tacoma is and who Tacomans are. And our Guaranteed Income project will be called GRIT, Growing Resilience in Tacoma. We picked the word grit because someone wrote to us early on and said, why not use the word grit? Tacoma is called the gritty city. Grit means that in spite of adversities, that we still get up and we still fight and we still make a difference. And we still take care of our families and our communities, that despite the difficulties and the hardships, that we are a resilient community. And so our project will be called GRIT, Guaranteed Resilience in Tacoma. And with that, it is my pleasure to introduce Donna Ponapento, CEO of United Way, who will go into more details about why this is important and why United Way is a part of this project with us. Donna?
Good morning. Thank you, Mayor Woodards. It's a pleasure to be here. United Way is so pleased to partner with the city of Tacoma. So what is this going to look like in Tacoma? Well, the mayor has already described ALICE to all of you, asset limited, income constrained, employed. We are going to focus on those individuals that are above the poverty level. That's $24,000 for a family of four, and those that are 200% of poverty level, which is roughly around $52,000 a year. So that's the population. So what are we going to do? $500 a month for no less than 12 months. And this is meant to be a supplement to their income and other benefits. We want to target at least 100 participants chosen at random from a pool of qualified individuals. And we'll also have a control group as well, because we want to, a lot of this is about research and being able to garner the kind of information that we need to really build a case for guaranteed income projects across the country. And then qualified Tacoma residents participants must be qualified Tacoma residents. And we're going to focus on single head of households, because we know that during the COVID, single heads of households were greatly impacted. I mentioned the ALICE criteria. We also know that with the ALICE population, that most of the ALICE population are disproportionately people of color. So there will be a focus on the BIPOC community. The mayor also mentioned Centers for Strong Families, and our Centers for Strong Families focuses on helping individuals improve their financial bottom line. So we are using those 4 centers that are here in Tacoma as a starting point to help us in tightening up the criteria and to gather further information as we continue the design of the demonstration. We're going to start recruiting participants in June and July, and there's going to be an application process. The Mayors for Guaranteed Income, along with their research partners, are going to be assisting in the random selection of the participants as well. So our next steps are to continue to do some focus groups out in the community. We want to make sure that we are getting the most input from the community as we begin to put the final touches on how the demonstration will unfold. And then we are going to also set up participant support and disbursement procedures during that time. And we'll be looking at things like impact of benefits potentially on participants, and working with folks from the state of Washington to help us further define impacts and how we can mitigate some of those impacts. So with that, I am going to now turn it over to Lori Finks, who is the Senior Director of Economic Services and Administration for Washington State Department of Social and Health Services. Lori.
Thanks so much, Donna, and good morning, everyone. It's really an honor to be here, and I am so excited that Tacoma is a part of this growing national movement. I had the privilege of serving on Governor Inslee's poverty reduction work group with Donna and many others throughout the state, which was tasked with creating a 10-year plan to dismantle poverty in Washington. The group was led by a steering committee of people experiencing poverty, and it came up with 8 strategies and 60 recommendations that aimed to do 2 things. One was to mitigate the rippling effects of poverty on people's lives. We know poverty is causally related to so many dimensions of well-being. And so we wanted to mitigate the effects of it, but also to create the conditions to eliminate the experience of poverty altogether. And so out of those 60 recommendations, one of them was to pilot a guaranteed basic income program. So we are thrilled to see these pilots emerging around the country and right here at home. And, you know, all the local work is going to be so important for us at the state, which just in this legislative session has asked DSHS, as well as the Poverty Reduction Work Group, to do a feasibility study on what a basic income program could look like at the state level. So this is very aligned. You know, research is building that guaranteed basic income is one of the best things that we can do to promote the well-being of children, families, and communities. It can provide a buffer so that they can weather a car repair, a job transition, an unexpected medical expense. It gives families flexibility to make the best decisions for their family and their children. It can improve health and well-being by reducing the stress that comes along with experiencing poverty. And it is a start to really adapting to the future of work, which is already disrupting employment in ways that we're only beginning to understand. So it makes all the sense in the world to go down this road. And I think it's really important to remind ourselves that this is about more than just economics. You know, I show up to work every single day. I see heroic efforts of my colleagues in DSHS and our partner agencies to make a difference in people's lives. And they do. You know, we prevent hunger, we connect people to housing, we connect them to education, job training, employment opportunities. But our programs were never designed to really move people out of poverty. They've been underwritten by decades of inherently unequal and unjust policies. They are regulated by a federal environment that is outdated and based on this idea that you are only deserving of having your foundational needs met if you can work. And we also know from research that that is a false premise. So this is about more than just economics. This is about dignity, letting people know that they belong, and that because you're a human being that you have value. So we're thrilled to support this work and very excited to learn from you along the way. So thank you so much for letting me share in this incredible moment.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Lori, for those comments. And I am so glad to see that my good friend has joined us. Former mayor of Stockton, California, Mayor Michael Tubbs, the gentleman I talked about earlier, who really, in my opinion, is really leading this national movement. Tacoma is but one city across the country that is participating in this pilot, and it would not be, or in this demonstration as we call it in Tacoma, but it would not be possible without this young man. And I call him a young man because anybody younger than me is young, but he's done so much in his early age. I can't wait to see when he gets my age, how he changes this world. But it is my honor to introduce Mayor Michael Tubbs, who is with us this morning. And just to all of you, any chance I get, I do want to express my deep gratitude to Michael. He could have very easily done his pilot project and reported on it and kept doing the work in Stockton. But he cares not just about his community, but he cares about this entire nation and all of the people who need our assistance that live in it. And it really was Michael's brainchild to take this nationally and to lead us in this work. And I just couldn't be more grateful for his friendship and his leadership. But everybody, please join me in welcoming Mayor Michael Tubbs, who will talk a little bit about the national movement and why this is so important. Mayor Tubbs.
Mayor Woodards, it's always so good to see you. And before I talk about what I'm supposed to talk about, let me just brag on you for a little bit. So I think it's important for your community just to know the caliber of leader they have leading in a very particular and important time in our country's history. Mayor Woodards probably didn't tell you guys, but she was one of the founding mayors of Mayors for Guaranteed Income. When we thought about who are the mayors that really speak to the needs of constituents and who are the mayors that represent sort of what democracy should be. One of the first mayors that came to mind was your mayor. And I called her, I said, look, Mayor Woodards, just trust me. I think I'm gonna be able to raise some money, but I need you to really start advocating with me for a guaranteed income for the federal government for a COVID-19 stimulus check. So she talked about the great work you guys were already doing. With is it Assets or Alex? It's one of those.
Alice.
Okay. with Alice in Tacoma, and having spent time in Tacoma with Mayor Woodards and just knew her heart and her passion. And I'm so honored because she doesn't give her name and her sort of credibility just to anything. And she's very thoughtful and particular about what she attaches herself to. So we're excited to have Mayor Woodards in the city of Tacoma. I think the first city in the Northwest to be part of this movement to provide an income floor for people. And as you heard from the president yesterday, that this idea of providing an income floor for people was radical, where Mayor Woodards and others stood up and said, we're going to form Mayors for Guaranteed Income. But now it's mainstream. We talk about this childhood tax credit, which is essentially what Mayor Woodards had been doing previously, even before COVID, around providing sort of what working parents need to be able to provide for their children, and that being extended to 2025 stimulus checks. And now, Tacoma, you are one of over 45 cities in this country who are standing up and saying now is the time to pilot, test, evaluate guaranteed income, but more importantly, to elevate the cause of human dignity, that all of our recipients are worthy of dignity, that we can trust our residents, we can trust each other, that the best way to grow the economy, as the president said, it's never been trickled down, it doesn't work. It's from the bottom and middle out, and there's nothing that does this quite like a guaranteed income. And what we saw in Stockton, I'm sure we're gonna see the same thing in Tacoma, is that folks know how the issue isn't that everyone who doesn't have money doesn't know how to manage money. The issue is that folks don't have enough money to manage. We know that folks aren't just sitting around waiting for Mayor Woodards or Michael Tubbs or the government to save them. Folks don't want to be dependent on government for everything. But what folks need is the government to provide a springboard to opportunity, to make sure that the safety net doesn't have holes, to provide that income floor. And I'm so excited to have Tacoma be part of this movement. Congratulations to the mayor, to United Way. I'm proud that Marriage for Guaranteed Income, we also put in $500,000 to this effort, because that's how strongly I believe, not just in the leadership of your mayor, but the potential, the intelligence, and resilience of your constituents. So excited to be with you guys in this national movement for dignity for all people, for economic growth for all people, and looking forward to learning so much from the city of Tacoma and the leadership of your great Mayor Woodards.
Thank you, Mayor Tubbs. Thank you so much for being here with us. And I hope you can stay around for a few minutes, because they may ask some questions that only are in your brain, because you've been working on this for a long time. That wraps up the formal part of our press conference. I again want to thank our steering committee partners. And like I said, United Way of Pierce County, Sound Outreach, the Tacoma Urban League, Greater Tacoma Community Foundation, and United Way, and of course the city of Tacoma. And I also again want to acknowledge Councilmember Christina Walker, who is my teammate on this work. And then we're going to open up for questions right after Mayor Tubbs makes one more comment. Or did you want to make another comment? I saw you.
No, they were trying to kick me out of my office. So they're like, I gotta go. And I was like, I can't leave yet. I gotta stay on. So I'm sorry. I forgot my video was off.
No problem. So I'm gonna turn it back over to our host, and we'll start to take any questions that you have.
Thank you, Mayor Woodards. We will take questions in the chat. So if you could type those in, we will answer them as they come. We also had some questions that were emailed prior to the event. Donna, this one is for you. Will you explain who chooses the participants?
Okay, so the participants, are going to be randomly selected from a pool of qualified candidates by our partners at the Center for Guaranteed Income Research and the University of Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Donna. You explained Alice. Will you talk about Alice a little bit more so everyone understands what that means?
So Alice, again, asset limited, income constrained, employed, and in the county, 31% of Pierce County is considered Alice. In Tacoma, that number is 40%. Alice families, which means that their household budget is below $52,000, which is more than 20% less than the median household income, and about 15% of these households are headed by single adults. So, we don't know the specific demographic within Tacoma, but we do know that Pierce County households are overwhelmingly people of color. For instance, of that 31%, 47% of Pierce County residents are Black that are Alice families, and it's around 44% Hispanic.
Thank you, Donna. This question is for Mayor Tubbs. What did you learn as you rolled Stockton's MGI pilot? Anything unexpected?
Thank you for the question, Ryan. I'm sure the data will play out the same in Tacoma. But one of the things that shocked me was just how something as small as $500 really allowed people to bet on themselves. And what do I mean? Well, the data talks about how those who receive the guaranteed income were actually 2 times more likely to go from part-time work to full-time work. And we would hear that throughout the pilot of the demonstration. And I was just surprised at how, but it makes sense. I was surprised in realizing that if you work an hourly job, for example, and you live paycheck to paycheck, you don't have the ability to take a risk of a day off to apply for a job you might not get when you know you'll get your bills at the end of the month, whether you get the job or not. And how so many people said that $500 let them take a day off to apply for a job they were qualified for that paid more, but they just didn't have the time to do it, or to buy clothes for an interview, or to pay for some tires to get, it was just like the little things that made all the difference between unemployment to employment and part-time to full-time employment. It was just mind-boggling to me. And the second biggest surprise was just the impacts on mental health. Like, I knew that being economically insecure and worried about bills was stressful, but I didn't know it was like clinically able to be seen in terms of on a Kessler scale, going from depressed to not depressed, and the only change being having a little bit of money every month and how it allowed people to show up better as partners, as parents, and as neighbors. That was just mind-boggling. So I thought maybe at $1,500, $2,000, I thought $500 would do something. But again, for me, it was just a big reminder that there's a number between zero and the perfect number, but even a little bit, even $500 is enough to allow people the dignity of agency over time and able to feel better and be less stressed and less anxious.
Thank you, Mayor Tubbs. Cameron, I believe this is a question for you. Will the city or United Way be tracking what people use the funding for?
Yeah, so just like done with the Stockton Economic Empowerment Demonstration, there is a data visualization set. So what we call our data dashboard, which reflects monthly spending patterns. And so as Tubbs had mentioned, you get to see how the recipients are spending the $500 a month, which is one of the most reiterated questions that our mayors and communities receive is how are these folks using these dollars to really bust the myths. And MGI has a partner named Steady that has the ability to track spending data by merchant code that is in the anonymized and in the aggregate. So the city of Tacoma will not be tracking spending data. United Way will not be tracking spending data, but it is intentionally used just for research purposes and always in the anonymous.
Thank you, Cameron. A follow-up question, when will research data be available to the public?
Yeah, so the demonstration will run for a year, so through about late summer 2022. How the data is collected, which is built off of the Stockton Pilots research model, which is also being expanded and scaled up in a bunch of other cities. So Tacoma's research findings will stand alongside St. Paul's and Oakland's and Cambridge, Massachusetts, and everyone in between, of probably about a dozen or two pilots by the end of this year. So by the end of 2023 is when a full analysis will be available on the pilot.
Thank you, Cameron. Mayor Woodards, will you speak to how GRIT will be funded?
Absolutely. So it's initially funded with $500,000 from Jack Dorsey through MGI. And then we are locally raising dollars from other partners to help cover we want to be able to do a minimum of 100 families and you heard at a minimum of $500 for a minimum of 12 months. And so we are actively working now and have been working to raise additional dollars to make sure that we are able to do that. Let me be very clear, 100% of GRIT demonstration funding will come from private donations or other opportunities. No taxpayer dollars from the city of Tacoma. Let me say that one more time. No taxpayer dollars from the city of Tacoma will be used to execute this demonstration. So for those of you who think that we're going to take pothole funding or police funding or fire funding or economic development funding or any other funding from the city, that will not be the case. We will be raising this money outside of our general fund dollars.
Thank you, Mayor Woodards.
Thank you.
Donna, where can people find more information about GRIT?
They can find more information about GRIT on the United Way's website. It's up and running, www.uwpc.org, and we can put that in the chat, and we will be adding information as we go along, because we do want to hear from the community. And so we will have opportunities for the community at large to provide input.
And if I could just piggyback onto something that Donna said, while our goal is to get our first payment out in late summer, between now and late summer, we will be continuing to have focus groups and talking with our community including those who may potentially be receiving this part of those who will potentially participate in GRIT in this demonstration. And so just want to be clear that this is not a decision that will be made in a vacuum or in a small box of the 6 organizations that are around the table now, that we are really reaching out into community and holding focus groups and talking with people to understand what worked in Stockton may not work in Tacoma. So we're not just plopping down the same model that's going to work in other cities. We're tailoring that model so that it's done the Tacoma way. And the only way to do that is to really engage with those who do this work, whether that is a nonprofit or those who have studied this, whether it's people in academia, whether it's at the state level, but we're bringing all of our partners to the table so that we can design what will be the best project for Tacoma.
Thank you, Mayor Woodards. We have time for one more question. This one is for Mayor Woodards or Mayor Tubbs. What is the next step after this? This is a fairly small group of people being helped, wondering where this is heading next and what you envision is the possible in the future.
Well, I'll start a little bit and then I'm going to turn it over to the expert there, Michael Tubbs. But I think Tacoma, I decided and thought this was a great thing for us to do because the only way to change the national conversation is to prove that it works. And to prove that it really does make a difference. And what we know is that difference is made at the city level. We're the ones who are closest to the people who can prove the validity of demonstrations like this. And we can show the effect they truly have because it's what we see every single day. So I'm excited to partner with all of the cities across this country to really make not just an impact in Tacoma, but an impact nationally. Mayor Tubbs?
I think you said it well, Mayor. And I think, Lily, to your question, I mean, it's 125 in Tacoma, 2,000 in Los Angeles, 150 in Cambridge, 125 in St. Paul. Like, if you add the aggregate up, it gets to a number that's pretty significant. But the idea is to really kind of call the question, as we say in politics, in terms of we know no city can do a guaranteed income at scale because we have to run balanced budgets. We can't deficit spend. So there's no city that's going to be able to do a guaranteed income. But what cities and mayors can do is to pilot and prove that it works. And there's all types of models from even before the New Deal, when the mayor of Milwaukee was piloting things like unemployment insurance and things that became tenets as part of the New Deal of cities being laboratories of democracy. So the idea is that it's not Tacoma alone, it's not Stockton alone, it's 50 cities with mayors of stature, from the mayor of Tacoma to the mayor of Los Angeles, to the mayor of Atlanta, to the mayor of St. Paul, who are saying, we're doing this, we're testing it, and when we show that it works, we need the federal government to partner with us. So even in the past couple of months, I know mayors have had conversations with their governors. We had a convening with some members of the White House, National Economic Council, Domestic Policy Council, and I think we've seen in this pandemic, the government sending checks to people. And now the question is not whether we can give money to people, but the question is really around sort of how much money can be given for how often and for how long, which is a huge shift from where it just was 3 years ago. So to my folks in Tacoma, for the 100 people at least you're impacting, it's going to make a world of difference for those 100 families, those 100 children, those 100 and the people they're connected to. But secondly, it's also going to make a huge impact on this narrative we have around why do people struggle? Why are people poor? Why are people one paycheck away? And the narratives and the stories will influence a national conversation that will move from 100 people to millions of people. Again, as we've already seen with the childhood tax credit, which is a monthly reoccurring check to parents for the next 5 years, which is essentially a guaranteed income for parents, which was unimaginable just 5 years ago. And I think a lot of credit goes to a lot of the mayors who are standing up and piloting these things before they become policy. That's the only way they become policy.
Thank you, Mayor Tubbs. Thank you, Mayor Woodards. Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Lori. This concludes our question and answer segment and our press conference. We will make this recording available at www.uwpc.org/growing resilience to